Well, today we're diving into a couple of stories that have really gotten people talking.
Yeah, there's been a lot of buzz.
A lot of buzz surrounding these topics.
Definitely some pretty strong opinions out there.
Yeah, for sure. And first up, let's talk about these Doge engineers at the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah,
This has really been something
absolutely.
that I think has taken a lot of people by surprise.
Yeah, it's interesting because on one hand, you have folks praising this whole thing as a way to make the government work better, more efficient, more transparent.
Right.
But on the other hand, you have people who are really upset about it.
Yeah.
They're using some strong language, calling it a hostile takeover, even a raid on taxpayer money.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you look at it from the White House perspective,
Mm-hmm.
they're really pushing this as fulfilling a campaign promise
Right.
to make the government more accountable to the people.
Yeah, they're saying this is what people voted for.
Exactly.
They want a more efficient government. They want more transparency.
Right. And so from their point of view, this is them delivering on that promise.
Exactly.
But then you have critics who are saying, wait a minute,
Yeah.
this is dangerous. This could compromise security. This could compromise privacy.
Right. They're worried about the implications of giving a private company access to these systems.
Right. And they're even talking about introducing a Stop the Steal Act.
Yeah. That's a pretty bold move.
It is, to try and block this whole thing from happening.
Yeah.
But then the White House, of course, is pushing back.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying, look, these engineers, they only have read-only access.
Right.
They can't actually change anything. It's perfectly safe. Don't worry about it.
So it's a real battle of narratives.
It is.
You've got two very different sides.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
I think so, too, because one of the questions that remains is, will these audits actually uncover anything significant?
Right. Will it lead to any real change, or is this just a political game of sorts?
Yeah. And will this actually just further escalate the political tensions?
Yeah.
Which are already so high.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about another story that has been
Yeah.
generating a lot of buzz, and that is President Trump's new plan for Gaza.
Right. This one's been causing quite a stir.
It has. Some people are saying this is a bold move for peace,
Mm-hmm.
while others are worried that it could actually drag the U.S. deeper into these Middle Eastern conflicts.
Yeah. It's a really complex situation
It is.
with a lot of different factors at play.
And it's interesting because on the surface, it seems like this might contradict Trump's whole America First stance.
Right. You wouldn't necessarily expect him to be
Right.
so involved in a region that's been so volatile.
Exactly. But then if you look a little bit closer,
Mm-hmm.
it actually fits with this whole deal maker persona
Yeah.
that he has. He's not talking about sending in troops. He's not talking about directly funding reconstruction.
Right.
What he's talking about is leveraging relationships
Yeah.
and negotiating some kind of solution.
So trying to use his influence
Right.
to bring the different parties together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the question is, can he actually pull this off?
Yeah. That's the million-dollar question.
It is. Can he get everybody to the table? Can he broker a deal that's going to satisfy all sides?
It's a high-stakes gamble.
It is.
For sure.
It really is. And the outcome is far from certain.
Yeah. It's really hard to say.
Yeah. Especially because you have some key players in the region.
Right.
Like Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia,
Mm-hmm.
who are already voicing skepticism.
Yeah, they're not convinced
Right.
that this plan is going to work or even that it's in their best interests.
And so, the White House is insisting that this isn't just some sudden whim,
Mm-hmm.
that Trump has been having these discussions with regional leaders
Right.
for a while now, trying to lay the groundwork.
So they're trying to show that this has been a thoughtful process.
Right, exactly.
Not just a knee-jerk reaction.
Right, but even so, the reactions that we've seen so far
Yeah.
suggest
Right.
that it's going to be a really tough sell.
Yeah, it's a region with a lot of history,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of competing interests,
Right.
a lot of mistrust.
Exactly.
So it's going to take some serious diplomatic heavy lifting.
It is. It really is. And then you also have to factor in
Mm-hmm.
the domestic political climate.
Right, because things are pretty heated right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the reactions to the Doge audits,
Mm-hmm.
and you see how polarized things are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so any misstep on Gaza
Mm-hmm.
could really ignite a firestorm back home.
Yeah, he's walking a tightrope.
He is.
Sure.
It's a delicate balancing act between, his base, who wants him to shake things up,
Right.
and the international community, who are watching his every move.
Yeah, he's got a lot of different audiences
He does.
to try and please.
Right. And some of them have very different expectations, for sure.
Absolutely.
And speaking of those reactions to the Doge audits, it seems like some folks are not holding back.
No, they're not mincing words.
Yeah, they're really using some pretty strong language.
Yeah, they're not just criticizing the policy. They're saying, this is dangerous. This could lead to violence.
Right, and so you have some officials even saying that we're at war.
That's pretty alarming rhetoric.
It is.
Definitely escalating the situation.
Yes. And then, of course, the White House is condemning these statements, calling them irresponsible and inflammatory.
Right. They're saying this is just going to make things worse.
Right, exactly. And they're also pointing out this double standard. You know, they're saying if Republicans had used this kind of language,
right,
the outrage would be deafening.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how divided things are.
Yeah, it really is.
That even language itself can be so polarizing.
Right, exactly. And so it's a tense situation.
It is.
It's really hard to predict how this is all going to unfold.
Yeah, it's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. Will things calm down, or are these tensions just going to keep escalating?
I think that's the big question.
It is. It really is.
That we all have to grapple with.
Right. And I think it speaks to this larger issue of political discourse in this country.
Yeah. Can we disagree without resorting to this kind of heated rhetoric?
Right. Can we find common ground, or are we headed for even deeper divisions?
Yeah, those are the stakes.
They are.
They're pretty high.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to wait and see.
We will.
But before we get too doom and gloom, let's take a closer look at some of the arguments being made on both sides of these issues.
Okay.
So let's start with the Doge audits.
Okay.
What are the folks who support them? What are their main points?
Well, their main argument really comes down to efficiency and accountability. They believe that Doge's expertise can help make the government run better.
Right. Eliminate waste.
Exactly. Streamline operations. Ultimately, save taxpayer money.
And they're seeing this as a way to bring in, you know, this private sector innovation into what they see as a bloated bureaucracy.
Yeah, kind of shake things up a bit.
Exactly.
Bring in some fresh ideas from outside the government.
Right. And they're also really emphasizing this read-only access that the Doge engineers have and saying that, you know, this minimizes any risk of security breaches or data misuse.
So they're trying to assure people that this is a safe, responsible way to conduct these audits.
Okay, so that's the pro-Doge side. What about the folks who are opposed to this?
Well, their biggest worry is about privacy and security.
Okay.
They're not convinced by these read-only assurances.
Right.
They think even having access to sensitive data could pose a risk.
And they're seeing this as kind of a slippery slope towards giving this private company too much power.
Too much control over government information.
Right.
And they also question whether this is even necessary. They argue that there are already mechanisms in place to audit government agencies.
And that Doge's involvement is unnecessary?
Yeah. And potentially even disruptive.
And then, of course, they also bring up the potential conflicts of interest.
Right.
You know, given that the CEO of Doge is now heading this Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah.
And so they're saying this blurs the lines between private interests and public service.
So it raises questions about who benefits from these audits.
Exactly.
Are they really about improving the government, or is there something else going on here?
And so you have all of these different perspectives, no easy answers.
No.
And it's a reminder that even these seemingly technical issues can be deeply political and incredibly complex.
They are.
All right, let's turn our attention back to the Gaza plan.
Okay.
What are the main arguments being made in favor of Trump's approach?
Well, supporters are framing this as a bold and innovative approach to a really tough problem. They argue that past attempts at peace have failed.
Right.
And we need a new approach, a fresh perspective. They also emphasize the humanitarian aspects, saying that the situation in Gaza is really dire. And something needs to be done to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people. And they also see this as a potential win-win. You know, if Trump can broker a deal that brings peace and stability to the region, it's a major foreign policy achievement.
It would be.
It would be a huge boost to his image, both domestically and internationally.
Yeah, but as we've already talked about, there's a lot of skepticism about whether this can actually work.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are the folks who oppose this plan? What are their main concerns?
Well, they question whether Trump can actually be an effective peacemaker.
Okay.
They point to his past actions, his rhetoric, which they see as biased towards Israel, and dismissive of Palestinian concerns.
So essentially, they don't trust him.
Yeah, there's a lack of trust there.
Yeah.
They also question the wisdom of partnering with countries like Saudi Arabia, which have their own agendas and questionable human rights records.
And then there's just this fundamental issue of trust. You know, decades of conflict have created this deep mistrust.
Yeah, it's not something that's going to be easily overcome.
It's not. And so they see this as a risky gamble. That could actually make things worse.
Yeah, it could backfire and exacerbate tensions, make a lasting peace even more elusive. So it's a complex situation.
It is.
With no easy answers.
And we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, only time will tell.
It will. But one thing's for sure. This plan has injected a whole new level of uncertainty into an already volatile region.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be fascinating.
It is.
To watch how it all unfolds.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the world is full of surprises.
It is. It really is.
Just when you think you've seen it all.
Yeah.
Something new comes along.
Right. Exactly.
Sick things up.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's still so much more to explore.
Absolutely.
And so in our next segment, we're going to delve a little deeper into the potential consequences of these events, both domestically and internationally.
Good.
We're going to look at the role of social media in shaping public opinion and consider the implications for the future of technology, government, and foreign policy.
Big questions.
Big questions.
Big questions.
So stay tuned.
And, you know, one thing that's really striking is how these stories aren't just playing out in, like, you know, government buildings or on the international stage. Public opinion is really divided, and social media is amplifying those divisions like never before.
For sure. I mean, we're seeing everything from, you know, praise for President Trump's bold leadership to, you know, accusations of treason and corruption.
Yeah, it's really a reminder of how quickly online discourse can become so toxic.
It can, and especially when we're dealing with such sensitive issues.
Absolutely.
It's a real challenge.
It is.
How do we navigate this incredibly polarized information environment?
Right. How do we sort through all the noise?
Yeah. How do we figure out what's actually true?
It's tough.
It is.
It really is.
It's about being discerning consumers of information.
Right.
Right. We can't just believe everything we see online.
Absolutely not.
We have to be skeptical, check sources, consider different perspectives.
And we have to be aware of our own biases.
Yes, that's a good point.
It's easy to just seek out information that confirms what we already believe.
Right.
But we need to be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
Yeah.
Be open to different points of view.
And it's also important to remember that these issues are incredibly complex.
They are.
There are rarely simple solutions.
No.
And what might seem like a good idea from one perspective could have unintended consequences from another.
Absolutely. You always have to think about the second and third order effects.
Right, exactly.
Like, let's take the Doge audits, for example.
Okay.
One concern that's been raised is the potential for job displacement.
Yeah.
If Doge comes in and streamlines things, could that mean government employees losing their jobs?
That's a legitimate concern.
It is.
And it's something the administration needs to address.
Yeah, they need to be transparent about their plans and make sure that any job losses are minimized.
Right, or at least mitigated.
Yeah, maybe retraining programs or some other kind of support mechanisms.
Yeah, exactly.
And on the Gaza front, there are concerns about sustainability.
Okay.
I mean, rebuilding infrastructure is one thing.
Yeah.
But creating lasting peace and economic opportunity, that's a whole other challenge.
It's a much bigger challenge.
Any successful plan needs to empower the Palestinian people, address the root causes of the conflict.
Right, like poverty and inequality.
Exactly. It can't just be about putting a Band-Aid on a deep wound.
Right.
You got to get to the heart of the problem.
You do. You really do. And so it's a tall order.
It is.
And there's no guarantee of success.
But it's a reminder that foreign policy is about more than just, you know, military might or diplomatic agreements.
It's about people's lives.
It is. It's about people's lives, their livelihoods.
Exactly.
Their hopes and dreams.
And their futures.
Absolutely.
And, you know, these two stories might seem completely separate.
Yeah, on the surface.
But I actually think there's a common thread here.
Oh, interesting. What do you...
And that is disruption.
Disruption. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Doge audits represent this disruption of traditional government bureaucracy.
Yeah, kind of shaking things up.
Right. And the Gaza plan is potentially a disruption of the long-standing stalemate.
Right, breaking the deadlock.
Exactly. And both of these initiatives are being driven by, individuals who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo.
Right, people who are willing to think outside the box.
Exactly. And that's generating these strong reactions, both positive and negative.
Because people are uncomfortable with change.
They are. Oh. Especially when it comes to such sensitive issues.
Right. It's understandable.
It is. But, history is full of examples of seemingly radical ideas that were initially met with resistance.
Yeah.
But ultimately transform the world for the better.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the printing press, electricity, the internet.
Right.
These were all disruptive innovations that changed the course of human history.
And maybe the Doge audits and the Gaza plan will one day be seen in a similar light.
I mean, it's possible.
We don't know yet.
Only time will tell.
One thing's for sure. We're living in a time of rapid change and uncertainty.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
The old ways of doing things are being challenged. And the future is far from clear.
So what does this mean for us as individuals?
Yeah, what can we do
to navigate this turbulent landscape?
It's a good question.
Well, I think the most important thing is to stay informed and engage.
Okay.
We need to be lifelong learners, constantly seeking out new knowledge, trying to understand the forces that are shaping our world.
Right. And we also need to be adaptable.
Yeah.
And open to new ideas.
Absolutely. The world is changing faster than ever before.
It is.
And those who are flexible and willing to embrace change will be the ones who thrive.
Right.
And perhaps most importantly, we need to hold on to our values, our commitment to democracy, human rights, a more just and peaceful world.
That's important.
It is. It's essential as we navigate these challenges.
Absolutely. So much to think about.
There is. There is.
And we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But the conversation doesn't end here.
No, it doesn't.
So stay curious. Stay informed.
Stay engaged.
And keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Exploring these two major stories.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
A lot to unpack. And, it's easy to get caught up in the headlines and the political back and forth.
Right. It can feel very abstract sometimes. Like it's just a game.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we can't lose sight of the human impact.
We can't. We really can't.
These stories are about people's lives.
They are.
The Doge audits, they could impact the livelihoods of government workers and the security of sensitive information.
Right. And then the Gaza plan.
Yeah.
That could determine the fate of families who are just trying to rebuild their lives.
Absolutely. And communities that are yearning for peace.
Right, exactly. And
so it's not just about policies.
It's not. It's about people.
It's about people.
And we need to remember that.
We do.
As we're grappling with these complex issues.
It's a good reminder.
It is.
To keep that human element front and center.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into these intertwined stories, what have we learned?
Well, we've seen how technology is really reshaping the relationship between the government and the people.
And how a single policy decision can have ripple effects across the globe.
Absolutely. Impacting millions of lives.
Millions of lives. And we've also seen just how polarized our political landscape is.
Right. It seems like it's getting harder and harder.
It does.
To find common ground.
It really does. But despite all of that,
yeah,
I'm still optimistic.
Me too.
I really am.
I think we have to be.
I think we have to be.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Right. Exactly.
I believe that by staying informed, engaging in thoughtful dialogue, holding our leaders accountable, we can navigate these turbulent times.
You can.
And create a better future.
I think so too. And it's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
We are. We are.
Our collective fate.
Yeah.
Depends on our ability to find that common ground.
To embrace empathy.
Yeah.
To work towards a more just and peaceful world.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
To end on.
It is.
And so as we sign off, we leave you with this thought.
Okay.
What role will you play in shaping the future?
That's the question.
It is. Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep.